Hello everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be talking about the best Pokemon of every HP amount in this current standard format, which does include Twilight Masquerade. Obviously, there are different ways of, there are different ways of dividing up the format, but this will include some Twilight Masquerade cards, and some of these are easy to determine, some of them are hard to determine, and I'm just going to be talking about the best one. So if you want to see a video where I go over more depth, you can comment that down below. But yeah, a few other rules. One is that I'm trying to avoid pre-evolutions. There are, I think, a few pre-evolutions here, but mostly the Pokemon that stand in their own right. So, for example, there's Charmanders and Bidoofs and lots of things like that. Those aren't really eligible, but then something like, say, Curlia. Curlia is a pre-evolution, but also has like an ability that's good in its own right, and so just kind of take that into mind and keep that in mind when I'm going through these because that's how I was approaching it. And yeah, that's about it. So let's just hop in, and we have all HPs from 30 through 340, except for 290. There are no Pokemon with 290, which I didn't even realize. But yeah, let's just start. And for 30 HP, we have Cleffa, Grasping Draw. This card is just a classic. I guess. I mean, it's not seeing a ton of play. It was seeing a bunch of play in Charizard. When it first came out, it wasn't seeing a lot of play, but then it saw a lot of play in Charizard, and that's probably gonna see less play now that Dragapult's so good, but we'll see. It might be able to like Dragapult might not be as highly played as um, I'm expecting or a lot of people are expecting, but still, Cleffa is vulnerable to Dragapult. But your opponent needs to like force it to the bench as well. But it's draw till you have 7 for free, free retreat. There are a bunch of baby Pokemon at 30 HP, but Cleffa is definitely the best. Next up, 40 HP, we got Zubat. 40 HP, there are not a lot of good 40 HP Pokemon. I went with Zubat here. Its ability, Revealing Echo, says once during a turn, if it's in the active, you may have your opponent reveal the hand. This card's like super underrated. Oh, apparently some people have played it in like tournaments, but it's really useful for getting hand knowledge. It's a really tricky card to play, and it's a card I don't really know if I've played with much either, but it's a pretty cool card and useful in control, but really useful in any deck. But of course, it is low HP, so it is vulnerable to stuff. Outside of that, 40 HP just isn't very good. Also, one thing I want to say as well, I did like scroll through all the cards, but there's a chance I missed some. So of course, comment down below your thoughts and subscribe if you want to see more. But then we got 50 HP with the Serum Basculin. This card's pretty solid. Another setup-based attacker, kind of like Cleffa, free attack as well. But it says search your deck for up to 2 basics and put them onto your bench. Of course, this Pokemon does evolve. Zubat also evolves, but this one's sometimes played with its evolution. If I look at this Dialga Tang deck, it's definitely played with its evolution here. But it is used for its basic attack, and it's really solid, a free setup attacker. There's a few of these in the game, and Zoom Bastion, it's just really solid. Next, Skwovet, we got ourselves for 60 HP, and Skwovet's ability Nest Dash lets you put your hand onto the bottom of your deck and then draw a singular card. This isn't that good, but with Babero, it allows you to draw a lot of extra cards, and also with stuff like Mew EX. There are a few Pokemon like this, but Skwovet is just a really solid Pokemon. Again, it is a pre-evolution, but I'd be shocked if people are really playing it with its evolution because it's got there are a few ingredients and they're not like well they're pretty bad. They're not unplayably bad, but they're not very good. Next up, 70 HP, we got Comfey. Things are getting a little bit better. There are a few options, I think, for 70, but the best one's Comfey. You could say Manaphy, but I think Comfey's better. And its ability, Flower Selecting, lets you look at the top two, put one to the lost zone, one to your hand. It's a draw engine. I was actually considering putting Tajagiri here as well. I will say that. Tajagiri is very new, though, and it's not like it's good, but I think it's not super, super good. So, not the same level of Comfey. And Comfey, obviously, Lost Zone, just a really good deck. Not too much to say about this card. But speaking of Lost Zone, we got Sableye for 80 HP. Sableye is like really just, in my opinion, the best attacker in Lost Zone. I'm not sure. There's a lot of really solid options, but Sableye obviously, Lost Zone attacker, and it has the attack Lost Mine, and it says you can use this only if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone. Put 12 damage cards on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. This is really good, really annoying for certain decks to deal with. I will say with Dragapult being so good, people might start playing higher HP basics because they are really scared of Dragapult in addition to just Sableye, so that could be a bit of an issue for this card, but still, I think it's a really good card. 90 HP, we got ourselves Mawile. Mawile is pretty interesting. 90 HP isn't the strongest HP in terms of or, like set of cards, but Mawile I think is really good and really underrated. Tempting Trap says for 1 color, so your opponent's active can't retreat. And on top of that, if you attack them and damage them during your next turn, then they take 90 more damage, assuming they haven't like switched out somehow. But of course they can't retreat, so they probably aren't switching out. And this is pretty nice. The extra damage is usable and I think a little underrated, but also not. It's not the main use. The main use is just as trapping an opponent's Pokemon in the active, and Mawile is just really good. Yeah, I mean it just does that for 1 colorless, and it's really solid. Not too much to say about it other than that, and it's I think it's better than Snorlax, the control-based Snorlax, but that is up for debate. Next up, we got Xatu for 100 HP. This one was interesting. There were a few options for 100, but I went with Xatu, especially because people are playing with Dragapult, and I'm also, of course, a big fan of Espathra with Xatu. I think that deck's pretty solid. They're not so good against Dragapult, but Xatu accelerates a basic energy, basic psychic from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon. You draw 2 cards. Pretty solid ability and pretty solid draw. It's not, in my opinion, like super, super good. I don't think it's the best way to play Dragapult, but it's really nice, giving you draw and acceleration. And also, I don't know. I mean, it's just good. It's fun, and I think it's a pretty cool card. Although I imagine some people aren't massive fans of this card. Next up for 110, we got Cramorant. 110 HP. This is really the only option, I think. I don't remember the other ones to be honest, but Cramorant is it's really good, right? It's arguably the best attacker in Lost Zone. It's either Sableye or Cramorant, but they're the main attackers. And yeah, it's pretty good. 110 for 3, but really it's 110 for free if you got 4 more cards in the Lost Zone, which you will most of the game. So you can go ahead and you could just do that. I mean, 110 for free. Talked about free attackers with Hisuian Basculin and with Cleffa, and this is another one essentially, and it's really good. It does have counters, but still really solid card. Next up, we've got 120 HP, and this is going to be Barrel Industrious Incisors. Just once during your turn, you can draw till you have 5 cards in hand. You can have multiple Barrels as well, which is an option. And yeah, Barrel is just a really good card. It's one of the best engines, if not the best engine in the game right now. There's a good few. I think it's the second best. I don't know though. It's really good. It might be the best with Skwovet as well. And also the reason why I have some of the special arts, I did just use Limitless's search feature, which doesn't always show. Well, it shows the newest art with some exceptions. Then 130 HP, we got Radiant Greninja. This is the best Radiant Pokemon by a pretty wide margin. It's more importantly the most versatile Radiant Pokemon, and yeah, I mean that's it, right? It's really the Radiant Pokemon played in. I don't think it's. I think it's a little less than 50% of decks, but still a lot of decks, and it's a pretty cool card. Obviously, you have it's versatile, so it has an ability that you can use in any deck, which is you must discard an energy, but then you draw 2 cards. We're talking about drawing, and drawing is always nice. And then we have Moonlight Shuriken, which for water colorless, you can only use this in water decks, but there are a good chunk of water decks, and it does 90 snipe to 2 your points Pokemon, which is pretty solid, and it's just a really good support Pokemon. It's not obviously included in every deck, but it's included in enough decks that it is worth putting here. Next, for 140, we have Roaring Moon. I'm not a big fan of this card, but I know a lot of people are, and it's really solid. You can play it with the Roaring Moon EX. You can play it with Koraidon. You can play it with both if you want. And of course, it is an ancient Pokemon, as it says on the card here. And that is really nice because you can use other ancient stuff, notably Sada's Vitality and Vengeful Fletching here does 70, 10 more for each ancient card in your discard pile. Just a really solid Darkness attacker. And one of the best Darkness attackers in the game right now, behind Charizard EX, probably, and also probably the Roaring Moon EX, but it's really solid. Next, we got Archeops for 150 HP. Archeops has its ability Primal Turbo. It is a stage 2 fossil, which makes it awkward, but Lugia V-Star is a card. And Archeops is also more important than Lugia V-Star, in my opinion. They're different. Obviously, they're not like the same card, and they work together there, right? So Lugia, V-Star, Archeops, like they kind of have to be played together. But if you're playing Lugia, you're always playing Archeops. But you could play Archeops without Lugia. I'm gonna scroll through the list. I'm probably not gonna see any Lugia decks without Archeops. I'm not sure. I can't tell if there's like some different decks or the page is buffering, but I think the page is buffering. Anyways, people generally play Archeops with Lugia, but its ability accelerates 2 special energy from your deck to one of your Pokemon. energy acceleration from the deck is like always good, or at least always solid. Uh, if there are attackers, and there are attackers that are well, it's special energy, so they can really be a lot of different attackers, and so this just is so good. Next, 160 HP, moving to our first EX, first multi-prizer, and we got Squawkabilly EX. Squawk and Seize, turn 1, you can go first or go second, but on your first turn, you can discard your hand, draw 6, and you can't use more than one of this ability in your turn or during the game, really. You shouldn't be able to. In live, there was a glitch that may or may not have been fixed, but yeah, this is just really good. Discard draw 6. You saw it on Dedenne GX back in the day, also with 160 HP. Yeah, Dedenne GX. I don't know if I said EX, but Dedenne GX was really good. Squawkabilly EX really good. And yeah, it's really solid in a wide variety of decks as well, which is pretty cool. 170 HP, similar Pokemon. We got Lumineon V, which says you can play it onto your bench and search your deck for a supporter. And this is nice, obviously, with the cards like Nest Ball and yeah, with Nest Ball most notably, which is good, right? And then Battle VIP Pass, which rotated. I also need to stop saying obviously, because not all of these things are obvious. But yeah, you get to use Luminous Sign only if you play it from your hand, right? So if you use Battle VIP Pass rotated, but if you use that in Expanded or previously, or if you go ahead and you use Nest Ball, the ability won't trigger, but Ultra Ball is still a card in the format, and that's a really good card, and so you can just play that, and you can get a supporter, which is really nice. And you can also use Master Ball. That's a card that's not played too much. It's an A spec, but it's all right. And you can use Lumineon V, and we see that used with Lugia. I was gonna say we see it in Lugia V Star. We did. Going forward, we probably won't, but it is an option. Then we come to Mew EX, the third in a row of 3 Pokemon that are just setup-based Pokemon kinda. Mew-BX is I describe as a utility Pokemon. You got free retreat, you got an ability that draws some cards, an attack that is somewhat versatile, good against honestly certain tech options. It's a tech against tech options, which is kind of cool. It counters Course to Mask Ogerpon EX, it counters Mimikyu, it counters Alolan Vulpix V-Star, and it counters it pretty much counters every wall in the entire game, which is really cool. It's the way Pokemon's actually changed some of their design philosophy a little bit, I think, where Pokemon that are walling based are also have attacks that hit through essentially themselves. So that means that Mew-EX will be able to copy them. So as I said, Mimikyu and Corsto Mask Ogerpon EX is 2 examples. They both have abilities that will essentially wall this Pokemon, but their attacks actually go through the walls, so there's nothing to worry about. Essentially, there's a bit more depth to it than that. But Mew-EX is a really cool card, really versatile card. Does not have the ability versatile as we've seen many times in the past, but still a really good card. Then moving on to 190 HP, I've elected to go with Rotom V. This is probably the most obvious one, and there is actually 2 Rotom Vs, so it's the one from this is Crown Zenith, but the one from Lost Origin. And wait, were they both from Lost Origin? They were both from Lost Origin. No, they I don't know, but there's another Rotom V that was a promo, and anyway, this is the one with the ability. Instant charge. When starting a turn, you can draw 3 cards and then end your turn. You do have an attack. It's not used very much, right? I've used it some. I don't actually know if I've used it. Uncommon Fossil, who I've worked with, I do a podcast with. So subscribe if you want to see that. But yeah, I do a podcast with. He's a massive fan of it. But yeah, the ability is really good, right? Draw 3, end your turn. The 4th in a row, and it is the last of those of this like string of low HP 2 prizers that have abilities that draw you cards. And well, I guess Lumineon searches, but it's similar. And Rotom V, it's really solid. I say it's actually the worst of the 4, but it's really good in control. And people are playing it in stage 2 base decks as well, because I mean with stage 2s, they're stage 2s, they're not stage 1s or basics, so they take more pieces to get into play generally. And yeah, they're just a little awkward at a number of times. So Rotom V will get you a bigger hand, and while you're setting up, it's just really nice. Next, moving into the 200s, we've got 200 HP Raikou V, the first of the 3 in the trio. A bit of a spoilers, the other 2 are not in it. I mean, Suicune V rotated, and Entei V is, well, it's not that good, but it's I guess as good as Raikou, but Raikou's the better type. So Raikou V here, you can draw a card if it's in the active. Lightning Rondo also lets you do 20 and 20 more for each bench Pokemon. Really solid attacker for only 2 energies. Can be teched into various stacks. If I scroll down, next is played. Oh, that's all Lost Zone. Mostly Lost Zone, but also Miraidon is really good in. I guess it's not that versatile. It's mostly in those 2 decks, but it's still a really solid Pokemon with enough versatility that obviously less versatile than stuff like Mew EX and or less universal, I should say. Less versatile than Mew EX, but less versatile or less sorry, universal. I'm getting confused. It's late. I'm tired. Then so you have like Rotom V, which can be played in way more decks, but Regu V is still really solid. And the V of choice for Lost Zone decks because they often want to use Forest Hailstone, although the meta's developed some, and sometimes they are playing Rotom V or stuff like that. Moving on to 210 though, this one was the hardest to do, and I think this is the first new card from Twilight Masquerade. We got Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX. This one I mentioned earlier with Mew EX, but it walls Pokemon with abilities, super good. Has not been played yet because it's not out, but it's a really good card. Just being able to wall pretty much like we're gonna get into attackers, and it walls a lot of the good attackers. And yeah, Cornerstone Mask Ogre Pontiac, just a really good card, new card, so it's a bit harder to predict. And there's a wide array of kind of different Pokemon with 210 HP, including all the Ogre Pons, but I definitely think this is the best. The Grassland's pretty good, and there's some other good ones, but still a really good card, an insanely good card. Then we move into Chien-Pao EX at 220 HP, water Pokemon. This kind of cool looking art, but Chevy Chill gets you energy. You got Excalibur probably, and use Excalibur to accelerate energy. You do Hailblade, does you discard any number of water energy from your Pokemon. It does 60 for each water energy discard in this way. I mean, then you're just hitting like essentially as much damage as you want, and you can one-shot anything. Really good deck. It's seen a lot of play, and it's just really solid. Not too much to say about it. Then 230 HP. We got ourselves Roaring Moon EX. This attacker, I mentioned the single prize Roaring Moon, but Roaring Moon EX is really good as well. 3 energies, and you either instantly knock out your opponent's active but damage yourself a bunch, or you do Calamity Storm to do big damage. And it's a relatively straightforward attacker, but also a really solid one. Then another ancient attacker, another ancient EX. We got Raging Bolt EX, Burst for whatever. But Bellowing Thunder here, you can, I mean, it's the same as Chien-Pao, higher multiplier. Chien-Pao EX, higher multiplier though, and it's 70 for each basic energy discarded, any types, but it is lightning fighting, so kind of awkward there. I definitely think this card's worse than Chien-Pao EX, but it's all right. There's the new Ogerpon, and there's some different ways to play it. And I'm not a massive fan of Ogerpon Raging Bolt, but it's a deck, and it's not bad. We move into Bayonet EX. This is also not so good. This is the weakest in the stretch of Pokemon we're going to be looking at now, but it's I don't know if it's the weakest. It's near the weaker end, but it's solid. You item lock 30 for 1 psychic, and you have, of course, 250 HP, which is all right. I mean, it's that weird mid-range of attacker like the Stage 1 EXs and V-Stars, but not really V-Stars. I don't actually know if there are V-Stars with the 250 HP. But yeah, Bayonet EX, solid attacker. You have Poltergeist, which does 60 for each trainer in your opponent's hand. Then we move to Blood Moon Ursaluna EX, another new card, insanely good card. This is in skill, the Blood Moon attack, which does 240 for 5 and can attack next turn. Also 260 HP on a basic, by the way, absolutely insane. But Blood Moon attack costs 1 colorless less for each prize your opponent's taken, so it can be really cheap and it's really tanky. It's just a really, really good attacker. I think this is the best card from the new set by a pretty wide margin, honestly, but it's really good. Then we move to Hisuian Goodra V-Star, and your ability Moisture Star heals all your damage as your V-Star power, but Rolling Iron does 200 for 3, and then you take 80 less. 270 is not as strong of a damage or an HP number, but still really solid. And yeah, just a really nice tank and good in Regidrago, which is kind of fun. 280 was so hard to figure out, but I went with Pidgeot EX, Stage 2 EX, best engine in the game in my opinion. There is some counterplay, but not a lot. And Quick Search just lets you search for a card every single turn. That is exactly what you want. It's really consistent and not that hard to get into play. And once it's in play, you are just set for the rest of the game, and your opponent really can't do anything to counter you because you have exactly what you want every single turn. And it's really good. Not too much to say about it. Free Retreat as well is nice. Relatively low HP for Stage 2 EX. A lot of the other Pokemon this a good few of the rest of the Pokemon are going to be Stage 2 EXs, and obviously it's the lowest of them because we haven't seen any before this, and it's still pretty good though. I mean, really good. Then we move to 300 because no 290, which is kind of weird and something I I don't know why, but there is no 290 HP Pokemon, but 300 HP here with Blissey EX. Really interesting card. I recently covered it, or I'm going to cover it. I don't remember. But Happy Switch, you move a basic energy around. 180 for 3, return, draw till 6. Pretty nice. For retreat, not so nice, but 300 HP as stage 1 is pretty good. I mean, it's really good. We may look at a Pokemon with more HP as a stage 1, but it's still really, really solid. Next, 310 HP, good for EX. This card, classic, right? I mean, it just accelerates all your psychic energies and damages your Pokemon, which usually isn't good, but it's really good. And the Kirlia engine is really solid, and there's some really solid Ralts and stuff like that. So it has a lot of pieces around it, and it's just pretty good. Next up, we got Dragapult EX at 320. Phantom Dive for Fire Psychic. You do 200 and then put 6 damage cards on your opponent's bench in any way you like. I mean, it's probably the best attacker in the game right now. And yeah, there's not too much to say about it other than that. And it's really good. Next, we move into Charizard EX at 330. Again, arguably the best attacker in the game. It's really between these two, in my opinion, and maybe Giratina V-Star, but realistically, probably not. Charizard EX just really good, accelerates energy, and your attack is really solid, and yeah, pretty decent typing as well. Nothing too much to say about this card. I mean, a lot's been said about this card. It's Charizard, right? It's really good. Lastly, though, we got Palafin EX, 340 HP. Weird ability that you can only play it with Palafin 0 to Hero ability. By the way, do not play the second Pokemon TCG Live. It does not work right. Your game will just. I played a game with it I made a video on it. It was weird. And then after that, I also decided to play it with test it with a friend, and that was crazy. What happened was like there's a single prize Palafin which with the 0 to Hero, and it like does something, and then it goes into the deck, and then you always top deck it, and then it's not actually a Palafin, and the Palafin's actually some other card. From what I've heard, it's like a supporter. I got Iridas and Switches. Those are the cards I got. And then you get these other cards. Oh, and I got a Palafin EX. The Palafin turned into a Palafin EX, but like the card, it wasn't right. It was really weird. And then I had these weird cards in my discard, and all of a sudden I had like 5 Palafins in my discard, single prize, all single prizes, and then they were like trainers and stuff, and then the and then I like decked out. Well, then I played the Dunsparce, and then the game froze, and then I decked out with a card in deck. It was all very, very bizarre. But yeah. Anyway, don't play this in live, but it's pretty good. Just really good raw stat, 340 HP. I mean, it's literally the highest. The last card we're looking at, 250 for 1, really, really good. Has some awkward stuff with its ability on the Palafin and the Palafin EX, but a really good card. But anyway, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and like and subscribe, especially because I am doing 2 videos a day, or I have been. I probably will be doing some extra videos, but for the next maybe few days. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.